Hey, welcome to the shop. So you've done a couple of inlays using my technique of offsetting rather than changing the start depth. But you're finding that you're losing the corners. The corners are breaking off on your male plug. Let's talk about why that happens, and let's talk about how we can make it stop happening, and let's get started. So why are your corners breaking? Well, it's pretty simple. If you look at this stick, I'm hoping it's going to focus for you. I've got a point carved into the end of this thing, and as you can see on the end of it, it goes right directly to a point, and it's very weak on the end there. Because it tapers down to nothing, it creates a very weak end on the end of the point. Now, this one is the same angle, but I've created a very small radius on there. It creates stability in the end of the piece, whereas this side has no stability, and you can see that I've deformed it and bent it over. If we look at it on a piece of paper, it might be a little easier to understand. This one is a very sharp pointed vector. It's very weak right there on the end. Here, I've created a little bitty radius on the end, and it makes it much, much stronger. So how do we do this? How do we make this happen, and how do we maintain a sharp looking vector by still adding the little bitty round over on the side? We can go into the computer, and I'll show you that in the programming. Now, if you look at Bro & Wood's inlays, he's the standard, or Two Moose Designs. They all do a very good job. If you zoom into any of their inlays and you zoom way in, you'll notice none of their vectors, or very, very few, go to an exact extreme point like this one here. So let's go in on the computer, and I'll show you how you can make some adjustments. We're not trying to get a perfect vector. We're trying to get a vector that'll work to maintain the corner so that when you do the male inlay, you get a nice, clean finish. Let's go inside. All right, so like I said out in the shop, we're not trying to create the perfect vector. We're trying to create a vector that will work. So what I'm going to do is open up a new model. I'm going to put the origin in the center. I like to work in the center when I'm doing inlays. That way I can take an odd-shaped piece of wood and make it work for the male plug, or etc., etc. But let's open that up. And I chose a vector. I'm going to choose a vector here, or an image graphic that will be able to give me flexibility to show you what I mean about rounding the corners and etc. So let's go to vector, import, and let's go with this guy right here. How often has that happened to you? So I want to show you a trick. I did that on purpose. If you take Carveco and you slide it to the right, which minimizes it, you can grab the vector that I have right here, or the graphic, left click and drag it in and let go, and it will import it in some cases. Now, you have to adjust the height. Obviously, we don't want a 1024 inch high image. Let's go with 12 inches. It'll adjust the width on the bottom, maintaining the aspect ratio, and click OK. So there's our graphic. Grab Carveco and bring it back over, maximize it back up to full screen, and let's create some vectors from this image. We'll go up here, click on this, and come over here and reduce the colors. We only need 2 colors, so we'll take it all the way down. Click Apply, and create the vectors. Let's close out the bitmap to vector screen. Let's go over here to this side where this light bulb is, over here, and click on that light bulb, and it shuts off the bitmap so you can see your vectors better. Clicking off of the vectors, we don't need this guy out here, so we'll click on him, push delete, and get rid of it. All right, let's zoom in a little bit. Now, as you can see, there are a huge amount of points on this guy here, and he's had a rough morning by the looks of things. How do we get rid of those points? The object is to round them over. There's multiple ways. You can click on the graphic, zooming in. You can see that that already has a radius on it a little bit. Let's pick one that's a little sharper, this one. We can go over here to the node editing tool, and you can grab these nodes. When you get the window, left click, and you can move things around to open them up. Now, we're only moving them very, very tiny amounts. So if we click back on the arrow and click off, zoom back out, it's almost imperceptible that we've actually rounded the corner. Let's roll this guy up and find one that's really pointed here. Let's pick this right here. If we move in, you can see that it's pointed pretty hard. Going back to the node editor, we can round this guy out. Very easily done. We've just increased this radius, so now When we go to carve it, it has more structure right here. The end won't break off. There's another way you can do this. As I've said in the other video, I use offsets a lot. So if we highlight everything, activate everything, and we go to our offset tool over here, if we offset outward now, 0.01, now what I want to do is not delete the original vectors because I want to show you the difference. So we're not going to delete the original vectors with this. We're going to offset. Oops, I did that backwards. I did delete the vectors. Clicking undo, uncheck the delete vectors, and now do an offset. And if we zoom in, you can see that it's increased the radius on all of these corners. These ones on the inside, it has not. So how do we fix that? Clicking off. Now let's just click on the inside vectors that haven't been adjusted. Before I do that though, let's go backwards one time. We're going to do an offset vector. Always check your offset distance over here because for some reason that changes periodically. This time let's delete the original vectors. Let's do the offset. We'll zoom in. We still have these sharp points on the inside. Clicking off. Clicking only on the inside vectors now, the ones that are still not rounded. Going to do the same offset again, offsetting outward. And now, as you can see, it has squared or rounded off those points, creating a much softer point, which is easier for the inlay to maintain. Now, if we go down here, these guys are already rounded, but again, if they were not, you could simply click on them, go to the editor, the node editor, and adjust them. Let's click off of this now. Now, one thing I want to point out, when you're doing inlays, there are times where things that are in your graphic are not going to work. Here's an example of it right here, this little point. What you need to do is go around your inlay and clean it up and get rid of those vectors. Let's choose something else here. Let's close this out. I don't want to save my changes. Let's go back to Carveco. To make a point here, I'm going to pull in another graphic. Let's go to new model, same as before. We can minimize this way if we choose to. Let's bring in this Cape Buffalo. Let's make that 12 inches tall. Coming back over. Once you've done this a few times, creating vectors becomes a breeze. Two colors, click apply, create the vectors, close this out, shutting off the bitmaps, and then we can zoom in here and look and see if we have anything that's not copacetic, which if we go right here, see that point right there, that is never going to work on your inlay. So we click off, click on that and delete it. And you'll need to go around your graphics and look and see if things are way too close together. This one is pretty tight. I might click on this and use the arrows and move it away. No one is going to notice that when you create the inlay, but you'll notice it if you don't do it. There's another spot right there. Click on that and delete it. Click on this, move it over. What I'm doing is creating space right here, which is easier for the maintaining of your vectors and your wood when you're doing your mail. Everything else in this looks pretty good. The one thing I don't like is these little eye highlights. I don't think they're big enough, so we'll click on those. Going to the offset. Let's try 0.01. Let's not delete the original vector this time to see what it looks like when we offset it. I like that. I think that looks better. So let's undo. Let's delete the original vectors now. And you can see that I can bump these up a little bit more to make it so that they will stay when I create the mail. And they'll be more visible in your relief. So this is the graphic that I'm going to use, I believe, on the next inlay. So we can go back out to the shop now and we can cut this out and we can look and see how it turns out. But that's basically what's happening with your corners if your corners are breaking off. They're too sharp and flimsy, they're breaking. So you're looking for a radius of 0.001 or just over that. It doesn't take much, but if they are a sharp point, they will not hold. You'll lose them. let's go back out to the shop and let's make something. Simple cross to find the center. .3D printed point that fits on the end of my 1/4 inch end mill, so I don't have to change that out to 0 in the center. We're going to surface this side, flip it over, surface the other side, cut the female. Next, we're going to surface the top of the male. Always surface both. One little trick you can do is countersink some screws, because nothing holds something still on your board, on your wasteboard, than that. So let's rock and roll, and let's surface this thing. Do yourself a favor and get a set of these little hooks for cleanup. You can get them off the Amazon Jungle Store. They're not very expensive and they're a lifesaver. Rough cut's done. I say we get to the point here. All right, I sanded it down to 180. I rounded the edges. I take a 1/2-inch dowel with some sandpaper and run it along in here to break these edges. And here's my version of water pop. I don't have a fancy spray bottle, so we'll just take this damp rag and go over it real easy like. And there he is. Now what I'll do is go back to 180, maybe down to 320 after this water pop. Sand it, oil it, and there's a water buffalo with all the points intact. All right, everybody, there you have it. How do you maintain the points on your details, on your inlays? Just remember, round off those points. Bigger is better as far as the vectors go, and you should be all set. As always, thanks for watching. Hope you got something. Hope you learned something from this video. Like, share, and subscribe. We'll catch you on the next one. Moo.